Okay, so over the last few days, we have been working on reports. And I think it's pretty obvious. A report is just a professional way of displaying information that you have stored in a file or a table. All right. So even from your work in essentials class, you know that, you know, a program can have a lot of data associated with it. All right. And you found that from your ERDs and creating and determining what information the program is going to require. So, one of the big things in terms of processing these files, or one of the most common, is by using or generating reports. And at the beginning of our current lesson from last night, or the one I posted last night, I asked you to come up with other things that you could do with a data file. All right. What other things could I do with a data file? So I'm going to ask the question now and ask anybody if they would like to um, share their thoughts. On other things or other purposes where I could process data files other than reports. All right, let me give you an idea or an example. It may get the conversation rolling. All right. Um, let's say I have my customer account information stored. All right. And there could be several thousand records in that table. All right, or that file. And let's say one of my customers come and contact me and say, I want to make a payment on my account, but I can't remember what my balance is. Could you check and let me know? So in a case like that, what am I going to do? I'm going to search through the file or the table, and I'm going to locate the one record that corresponds to the customer that made that request. And then when I find that one customer, I could display results. So I could display the information that I have about that customer. And obviously, one of the things that I would probably display once I found them is their account balance. So that process where you're looking for a record in a file or a table is called a search. So it's not a report in that I'm not printing out detail lines for every record that I need. All right. I am searching a file specifically for a single record. All right. And that is referred to as a search. Janelle came up with a good one, archiving. And realizing that files can get fairly large, and realize that when they get big enough, all right, as I go through and do other operations, it's going to take longer and longer because the file is getting bigger and bigger. So sometimes what people will do is they'll create archive files, and it's basically just like a backup file. And what will happen is I will take, let's say, records in a file up to a certain date or before a certain date, and I will move them to an archive. So they're still available to me if I ever need them. All right. I can move those to an archive or a backup file, and then it decreases the size of my current document. So then again, it doesn't take as long to perform operations on it because there are not as many records. All right. So archiving is a nice idea. All right. The other example that I just gave you, all right, and I'm gonna write it down here. Just hang on, let me share my screen just so you can see everything. All right. I'm gonna say searching a file for a single record, i.e., get the current balance due for a customer account. Or find data about an inventory item. All right. To see if it's either available. Let me add that. To see if it is available or on order. So as long as I have that information stored in a file, all right, I could search an inventory file for a single record that corresponds to a single item. All right. And I can search the file for that particular item. All right. Neat little process. Maybe what I'll do for tomorrow is I'll do up a quick little document that gives us information on a search or results for a search, just so you can see what it looks like. It's not hard. All right. It's not hard. All right. Anybody else come up with any other ideas as to what you might want to do with a data file? Or how you could use a data file? Searching for trends. And that is kind of what we're going to do in this lesson. All right. We're going to give you kind of your first look at data analytics. All right. We're going to give you your first uh, thing into data analytics. And basically, it means processing a file and pulling statistics basically out of it. And trends is a very common thing to look for. All right. Trends is a very common thing to look for. And it allows you to make better decisions, all right, because of the data and the information that you have available to you. Converting data to a PDF or indexing, there's always examples of companies that require certain information, and they may not want it as a comma separated text file. They may want it as a PDF. They may want it as a database table. They may want it as some other format. So converting data or converting files to different formats is actually another fairly common process that you might see within a company. Jennifer said data integration. All right. I don't know if I've actually heard that term, and I'm not actually sure if I understand exactly what you mean. Could you kind of clarify it a bit? Combining data from multiple data sources. So right now, um, when we create a report, all the information is coming from a single table, a single file. All right. When we have relational databases, all right. Um, how do you know I'm a Habs fan? Um, when we um, generate a relational database and it's got all kinds of tables and all kinds of information, it's possible that the information. Oh, my mug. um, I must say I do have several uh Habs mugs. All right. They make great stocking stuffers at Christmas. Um, Sometimes you're going to find that you may want to generate a report, but you might need information from more than one file, or the data that you're looking for may be stored in multiple files. All right. No shame in supporting a winning team. Um, so yeah, I understand now what you mean by integration. Basically combining data from multiple files to get the information that you're looking for. And you do see that a lot in reports. All right. Now, you know, I gave you, just like every other topic that we covered this year, I gave you an introduction to using data files. All right. Later on in your program, or as you work through your program, are you going to find other ways? You're definitely going to find other ways. And you're going to be made to use files in other ways. All right. But basically, it's going to be the same thing. You process the file, you pull out the information that you want, and then you display it in some way for the user to make use of or make decisions from. Cool. One of the interesting ones is this. I wrote there, add, modify, delete. All right. So if you have a file or a table, all right, you're going to need to write a program that will add data to that table. So if I have a customer table, I would have a program that allows me to add new customers to that table. If I have an inventory file and I get some new inventory that's not yet been set up, I will have a program that will add a new inventory item to a table. All right. So any table, and I'm going to say table or file, will have a program that allows the user to add new records. All right. You may also find that you have to write a program that will allow you to modify a record. Maybe somebody's address changed. All right. Maybe a supplier has changed for an inventory item. So I may need to go and update certain fields of certain tables when changes need to be made. All right. So tables or files may need to be updated. All right. Customer change of address. Inventory item change of supplier. All right. An employee. All right. An employee may change positions within a company, and their job, their position, is maybe part of their employee file. So I would have to go in and I would have to modify the position for that employee. All right. And then finally, all right, records that become obsolete need to be removed. All right. So if I have a customer that has not renewed their registration or whatever the case may be, all right, or I guess in some cases, I mean, customers get old, customers pass away. So I don't want, it seems kind of gruesome sometimes, but I don't really need those customers set up in my table or file anymore because they're not going to do any more business with me. You may find that a inventory item um, is not being manufactured anymore. It's it's out of it could be any reason. But for some reason that product is not available anymore. All right. So you would have to remove it from your inventory table. You even are going to have employees that quit their job or get laid off or fired. Well, if they get laid off, you may keep them around. You may keep their record there, just change the status to inactive or something. But if an employee is fired, again, I'm going to need a program that allows me to delete employees from that file or from any file. All right. So it's pretty common when you create a data file that there are 3 different programs written. So if I have a customer file, I would have an add customer program, a modify customer program, and a delete customer program. 3 different programs that will make use of the information that I have in my table. All right. I was kind of thinking that, but since uh, R, W, and A, so those are the different modes, I thought not to mention them. Now, technically, all right, we have written programs that add data to data files. All right. We have not written any programs that modify or delete. All right. And when you think of it, these are things that are going to have to be required. All right. Keep thinking about this. All right. Keep trying to think of other ways that we could use data files. And I'll ask the same question tomorrow. All right. And we'll see what kind of answers uh, we can come up with. All right. Now, what I'd like to do here is another reason to process a file is to produce summary data. Now, this is kind of what Brandon said earlier in terms of finding trends. And it's an interesting little program. So a summary report is basically just made up of counters and accumulators. So if you look at the example that I have here, all right, I'm actually going to grab this. And I'm going to paste it right here. All right. Now I am going to have to make a few little changes here. I got rid of those. All right. I'm going to fix the sometimes when you take this from a PDF, all right, it doesn't like it. Now, this stuff here is going to be indented. Oops. Okay. So here's what you're going to see. When you want to create summary data, all right, and summary data is all based on counters and accumulators. All right, it's all based on counters and accumulators. So what you're going to do is you're going to initialize them outside your loop, like always. Then inside your loop, right here, you're going to read a record, all right? And then you're going to update the counters and the accumulators based on that record. All right? We're going to summarize the data. So inside the loop, all right, unlike a report, I don't print anything. All I'm doing inside here is generating summary data. And then after you finished with the file, All right. Now you print out all your results. So the entire file has been processed. All of the summary data has been accumulated and counted. So now I print out my results, kind of like what you see here. All right. This is kind of like what you see here. So if I process my inventory file, and there's my file there. I did notice that I forgot it on the lesson plan from today, but I went back and I did add it. All right. So there is all the information we have about a single inventory item. So I'm going to process this record and update all of these values. And then at the end of my report, or at the end of my program, right here is where I'm going to print everything out. So in this type of problem, all right, you don't actually print anything inside the loop. You're just counting and accumulating. So let me see. Oh, here we are. All right. So this is what I have inside of my file. So I've split the line. And now I'm going to read the data. All right. I'm not sure what I need yet. All right. But when I look through this, I can pretty well be sure that anything that's numeric, I need. All right. So nowhere do I need the product number or the description or the manufacturer. All right. I think we're going to start with the cost. So the product cost is element 3. It's the fourth item. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then I'm going to grab the retail price. And that is at element 4. All right. So what's the difference between the cost and the price? The cost is what I paid for it as a company. The retail price is what I will sell it to my customers. All right. So that's going to be after a markup. Then I've got the quantity on hand. All right. So I've got the quantity on hand. And that's going to be an int, I believe, because it's just an integer. And that is at item 5. All right. Then I've got the reorder point. And again, I'm going to make that an int. And that is going to come from element 6. And then I've got the maximum level. And again, that's going to be an int. And that is at element 7. I'm going to just check my file here and make sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. All right. So that is good. The next four values, and if you look at the file, it's these right here. All right. Those are for winter, spring, summer, or fall. So a toaster, I would stock in all four seasons. A snow shovel, I'm going to say yes to winter and yes to fall, but no to spring and summer. All right. So depending on the item, you can identify which season it's going to be looked at. So when you're reordering, all right, if it's May and I've run out and it tells me that I need a snow shovel, I'm probably not going to order it until the fall. All right. So I can make decisions based on that as well. So I'm going to have winter, and it's just going to be a yes, no value. All right. And that's item 8. And then I've got winter, I've got spring, I've got summer, and I've got fall. All right. So that's at 8, 9, 10, and 11. All right. Then I've got the number sold this year and the number sold last year. All right. So I've got num sold this year. And again, that's going to be an int value. And that's at 12. And I've also got the number sold from last year. All right. So you figure if I know how many of these items I sold this year and last year, all right, I can make decisions based on those numbers, or I can come up with things based on those numbers. All right. And then the last values I have here, all right, I've got 3 dates. So I've got the last order date, the expected delivery date, and the actual delivery date. All right. And there is some information in here. I think oh, maybe not. All right. I don't know in this example if I actually need the dates. Now, just to make sure, like I've done many times, I'm just going to print these guys out. All right. And the only reason I'm printing them out is to make sure I got them all. Got that. Num sold this year and num sold last year. All right. So let's see what this is going to do me. All right. So you can see the information here that was printed out. All right. Now, if I come here and I start here, 34.95, 59.95, 16, 4, 24, yes, 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 28, and 72. And if I look at the very last record, all right, it's 1750, 29.95, 16,520. No, yes, yes, yes. 80 last year and 100 this year. All right. Or yeah, the first number is last year and this year. All right. So I'm pretty comfortable now that all of the values that I need are here. Okay. So remember, in this type of project, everything is based on counters and accumulators. So the first thing I want to find here is how many total inventory items do I have? So I'm going to set an inventory counter, and inside my loop, I'm going to add 1. All right. I also need the items to order. All right. Well, an item to order means that the quantity on hand is less than the reorder point. And what did I do? I added 1 to the counter inside the if statement. So it's only going to increment this one if the item has to be reordered. Now, let's look at this one. Items with 0 on hand. All right, so I'm going to say 0 counter equals 0. And then in here, how do I determine? I'm going to say, well, if the quantity on hand is equal to 0, I don't know where I got a capital F. All right. If the quantity on hand is equal to 0, then my 0 counter will have 1 added to it. All right. And the total currently on order. All right. The items currently on order. How am I going to know if an item is currently ordered? it's going to have to be based on these dates, which I did not input from the file. All right, so I am going to have to go, let's leave that one. All right, let's leave that one for a minute. All right, I want to come, so I got these three here. All right, let me now do these three here. So the total inventory cost, this will add up all of the costs for each inventory item. So that's going to be an accumulator. So I'm going to have total cost accumulator. And I'm also going to have a total retail accumulator. All right. So I can total inventory either at cost or at retail. So my total cost accumulator will increment by the product cost, prod cost. And the total retail accumulator will increase by the retail price. All right. And then the potential profit margin is actually the retail total minus the cost total. It probably tells you over here. All right. So the potential profit margin is the difference between the two values. All right. So let me come up here. This is not really a counter or an accumulator. It's just a subtraction. All right. So I can here just say potential profit is equal to the total retail accumulator minus the total cost accumulator. All right, now I have now completed these 6 things. All right, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to come down here at the end of my program, and I'm going to print out those values. All right, I'm going to print out those values. I am going to need the current date. I don't know if I have it. I do not. All right. So I'm going to print. It's an F string because I got a variable there. ABC Company summary inventory data as of the current date. So according to this, all right, this is a medium format. All right. So I'm going to go FV. Oops. And I'm going to do my FDate medium. And I'm going to print the current date. All right. Again, where this is at the end of a line and there's nothing after it, I don't have to worry about giving it alignment. If I want to, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's 9 characters. So if you want, you could do less than 9s. And it's always going to, a medium format is always going to look like that. All right. So if I print that out now, all right, as of there's the current date in the format that I want it. Okay. Blank line. And now I'm going to start to print out my information. All right. So in this case, I have a couple of things I want to print out here. So I'm going to say print. It's an F string. I've got total inventory items. And I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spaces and a variable. And then I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 total inventory cost. And I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I've got a variable. So this one here is my inventory counter, and that's an integer. So I'm going to just do greater than 4D. All right. I don't have to format it. It's just showing it. There's no formatting there at all. All right. So I'll just print that one out. And over here is my total inventory cost. So my total cost accumulator. Now this one, I actually do want to format because it's a dollar value. And then I'm going to do greater than. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 characters in all. All right. And because it's formatted, all right, it'll print as a string. Now let's just see if that works. So it says I've got 12 items and my total inventory is 600. That seems very low. Oh, whoops. Right? I need to, the total inventory is the price times the quantity I have on hand. All right. And that looks better. So if I look back at my file, I do have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And if I multiply the cost by the quantity for each one of these, I would get that total. All right. So nothing prints out in the loop. I just print out everything after. Let's do the second line. It's items to order. And then I want to line it up there. And then I want total inventory retail. And I'm going to line this one up right here. Again, I know I want to format it as a dollar value. So let's just go and get it. And this is going to be my tote retail accumulator. And again, I'm going to do 10S. This one is going to be my reorder, INV reorder counter. And again, this one is an integer, but there's only 3. All right, let's see how I do and how I line it up. I only want 3 spaces between those. There we go. Oops. One more. There you go. All right, so I line these up, and I've lined these up. So it says I have 3 items to order. Let's go check. So I've got 16 and 4. That doesn't have to be reordered. That doesn't. That does. So there's one that has to be reordered because the quantity is less than the reorder point. All right. That one's good. That one's good. That one's good. That one's good. There's another one that has to be reordered. And then there's one that has to be reordered. Okay. And then my inventory at retail is if I take my retail cost and multiply it by my quantity for every item, I would get that. All right. And let's just print out this last line. Print items with 0 on hand. And then potential profit margin. All right. So this one is going to be my 0 counter. And again, it is an integer 3D. And this one is my potential profit margin. So I want to format that one. Potential profit. And then I'm going to do greater than 10S. All right. So it says right now I have 1 item with 0 on hand. And if I come back up here, all right, there it is right there. All right. So the 34 Chevy model kit has 0 on hand. All right. And that'll help me because if I know I have items with a 0 balance, all right, technically that may make me lose money. Because if somebody comes in looking for that item and I don't have any, well, they're going to go buy it at another store. All right. So I know I have an item with 0 inventory. All right. I could even go and find it if I had to. All right. I could even go and find it if I had to. And then my potential profit margin is just the difference between these two. So if I sold everything that I have right now, all right, if I sold everything that I had right now, this is how much profit I would make, or profit margin. All right, so that's after cost. All right, just to show you something here. All right, I know I only have 12 records. All right. Let's say I had more. All right. Now, these are all just duplicates of the same thing, right? So all that's going to happen here is my numbers are going to multiply by that figure. But right now it says I have 216 items. All right. So if I run this again, this should say 216. This is going to be by whatever multiplication number I used. All right. Now see how these numbers got really big and they actually exceeded the 10 characters. So I may have to go back and make those 11, but it did count 216 items. 54 had to be reordered and 18 have 0 on hand. All right. So I added that many more items. Interesting though, right? When I ran this program, it was just as quick for this to come up based on 216 items as the initial 12 items. So that's how fast one of these things can process the data. All right. I am going to copy that. And I'm going to go into our team. All right. So there is the start of that program. All right. And the big difference here is inside the loop, I read a record and then I figure out my summary information. All right. So I'm going to now say to you guys, you start from this point. All right. If you're not comfortable with this one, with this item here, just leave this one out for now and start here, right? Count all the winters, the springs, the summers, and the falls. All right. The biggest sales gain from last year. All right. The biggest sales loss from last year. All right. And then I want to list out the items that I have to reorder. All right. So a couple of interesting things are going to happen in here. All right. So see if you can continue with the program and come up with some of these values. You may not finish them. All right. You may not finish them, but see if you can come up with some of the other values that you might need. All right. It's pretty quiet on the chat. So I'll assume everybody is okay with what we're doing. All right. And I'll let you guys go off and play with that. All right. And see which of the other values you can come up with. All right. See which of the other values you can come up with. All right. So you can use the program that I just posted and continue on with it. All right. So it's just another way to process a file. All right. Technically, these are called summary reports. All right. And summary reports are basically just counters and accumulators that are generated when you process a file. All right. So you process them inside the loop and you print them outside the loop because you only want to print it after all of the items have been processed and all of the values have been generated. All right. So kind of an interesting little scenario here. All right. Kind of an interesting little scenario. So we will finish this off tomorrow. All right. And we'll go through and take a look at the other values that we need. And we'll see what we can do to come up with them. All right. But do try and see what you can come up with on your own. If you haven't finished your QAP yet, all right, it is due this evening at midnight. So finish that up first. All right. Even if you don't get a chance to do any of this, all right, just go back and take a look at it and say, okay, what would I have to do? All right. What would I have to do? All right. And at least that lets me know that you thought about it. All right. Also, you can think of other ways to use files. So right now we've got an add, modify, delete option. We've got a search option. All right. Somebody talked about analytics, talking about converting, talking about integration. All right. And somebody else said archiving. There you go. There's the one I was looking for. So we've got lots of reasons why we could use data files. All right. We've got lots of reasons. Again, in my case, all right, I've gone through the process of saying, this is how we add data to a file. This is how we process a file. We've seen it both for a report and for some analytics, all right, or summary data. There's lots of other ways, and you will see lots of other ways as you continue through the program. All right. But I just want to give you an introduction and say these are some of the different things that we can do. All right. I think. All right. If you need, there is another support session. David is on track here. All right. Right now. So you guys can go and visit Dave if you have any further questions. All right. Other than that, we will see you tomorrow. I will ask the question again, what else can we do with a data file? All right. And then we will go through and finish off grabbing and generating the data that we're looking for. All right. We're going to generate the data that we're looking for. All right. Other than that, I'm good. See y'all tomorrow. Have a great day. Bye-bye.